This is the podcast, not an interview. This is a conversation. No gimmicks, just reasons. 84 reasons. Come holler at me. What up, my good people? I am Ben Troop on the road as I always am, but enjoying the festivities as always. Unless you live under a rock, there was a documentary series on Netflix right now called Swamp Kings. If you don't know now, you know about the 2006-2009 Florida Gators. If you're not a Gator, it don't matter anyway. Don't get mad at us. That's when Gator was in his glory years. My next guest, oh my God, I don't even know how to even introduce him the right way. Repping them tight ends, representing that number 84. This is the 84 Club. I know this is 84 regions, no games, no gimmicks. This is the 84 Club. Today, my next guest, Tate Murder What's the Case Casey. What's going on, TKs?
Not much, man. You been all right?
Man, I can't complain, man. I mean, it's always good to, chop it up with you and run, talk about some things. But, man, when y'all was at Florida Case, I got to go ahead and say this. You know how many people ask me, now mind you, me and Case, we wore the same, played in the same place, wore the same number. They used like, true, but I got so sick. I mean, are you related to Tate Casey? At this point, I'm like, At first, I'm like, no, we don't look nothing. Then finally I said, hell yeah, that's my boy, that's my cousin. Like, and then people wanted to question it. I'm like, no, that's my cousin. And then what happens is they said, dude, he is the inventor of the jump pass. I said, no, he is the receiver of the jump pass. But 2006, 2000 TKs, man, what was that atmosphere like in Florida? Because obviously we all want to do it, but y'all boys, y'all put the whole world on notice.
I think the funny thing is, and we talked about this documentary, and I haven't had a chance to see how it comes across yet. I'm kind of anxiously waiting until tonight when I get a chance to sit down and kind of shut my phone off, turn the locks on, sit in the bedroom and watch it. But, I think that the biggest thing for us was we wanted to convey to people the mindset of that team, right? The hard work and the effort that went into that, and what Urban Meyer tried to do that was different from when we first got there, or at least myself. And when guys came in, how he approached the program, how we approached it as guys that bought in. And the big thing for us was paying off for the championship. That was our whole deal. It was championship or bust. And I think that that's even really in 05, because we had a chance in 05 to go to the SC title game. And as you'll see, we didn't capitalize on that. But there's a lot that goes into it. There was a lot of dynamic and a lot of change in the program at the time. But the mindset is really the key to everything. And it started with mat drills and winter workouts and summer workouts and going into two-a-days and just, the leadership change on the team and guys like, Tebow coming in, Siler, all these guys that were involved so heavily in our team invested really that changed the mindset and set that bar.
The voice you listen to right now is Tate Casey, won 2 national championships from 06 to 09 with them Florida Gators. Well, speaking of the Florida Gators, there was an NRL platform called Florida Victorious. Make sure you go to Florida Victorious, type in 84 reasons into the to where to get 20% off your first month. We always talk about supporting these athletes. We are former athletes. No, we are not hating on them. We just want to make sure you support them. Go to Florida Victorious, type in 84 reasons in the coupon code to get 20% off your first month's membership. Now let's get back to the episode. TKs, look, man, people always say, man, when you play for the Dallas Cowboys, right, you feel like a rock star in the city of Dallas. Man, what was Gainesville like? Like, because you guys, it was so many personalities, starting with Urban Meyer. You talk about yourself, Tebow, Percy, the Pouncey twins. What was Gainesville like when it's one thing to expect to win? Y'all didn't lose that much, man.
No, we didn't. And, we lived it up. I think that the other thing we'll dive into in this, documentary is just the differences between those 06 and 08 teams, right? When you look at 06, that was a blue-collar, really chip-on-the-shoulder type of team. I had a defense that was too deep, about as good as anybody in the country. The offense was trying to find their way. When Urban come in, we didn't know what the offense was going to look like. We knew it was going to be a spread offense. And for guys like me, it was like, okay, is this like something where I'm going to have to go somewhere else? Or is this something where I'm just going to keep vested, keep putting my work in, and hopefully get reciprocated on the opposite side with plays and a new scheme? And you started to see some changes in Urban's philosophy and his offense, right? Went from a spread offense completely to injecting a lot more tight end, a lot more fullback, a lot more almost that hybrid H-back role that you saw between, Cornelius Ingram, myself, and Aaron Hernandez, and then it kind of evolved from there. And so it's just one of those things. I think the best part about it for guys like us is just to look back and go, man, it kind of notices what exactly we accomplished, because when you go through, and I tell guys this in college at UF all the time, is to go through 4 years and put the work that we put in and leave without anything as a reward, right? Other than a helmet and a framed jersey on the wall, it's a travesty. It's something that you should never. The mindset should be, I'm here to win a championship. That's what we did. And the mindset was across the board, winning a championship and trying to go to the NFL. I think for every starter, there was no difference in mindset, and we were never out of a game. I mean, it was just such an ironclad mindset. You couldn't really shake us. And I think the mental toughness aspect is what, molded us in the right way towards the championship drive.
And I have been blessed enough to have Dallas Baker on, talk to Lewis Murphy, talk to Steve Harris. Every last one of those guys said Urban Meyer was a guy to where his tactics were different, effective, but very, very different when you think about what am I trying to get these guys to understand. What is your breakdown of a guy like Urban Meyer? Because obviously, from the outside looking in, you like him, hate him, love him. But talk about his methodology and getting you guys all on the same page.
Yeah, I think Urban's principle was, when he came in, the team was here. He needed about 22 to 30 guys right here, like as close as they could be, right? You give me 22 to 30 guys, we'll go win a championship. And looking back on it, things we didn't understand at 18 to 22 that you understand now, right? There's not a whole hell of a lot of things in this world that you can work that hard and come out with a reward of a national championship, right? After football, a lot of guys, that's what got us up in the morning. Right, a lot of guys now, you're working a day job, you're trying to make money, trying to make the mortgage payment, you're raising families. That is like those things where now you look back at it and go, man, I'm damn glad I had a coach that did that way, right? Because the mindset that it prepared you for in the real world is you can attack anything, right? Like I can go out and I'm gonna go set my mind on something, I'm gonna do it. And that was kind of like the discipline thing that was subtly injected in there between him and Mick Marotti that drove a lot of us. I'd say for those 25, 30 guys that he did pull together and really set the bar and the leadership levels. I mean, he talked about Brandon Seiler, but for every Brandon Seiler, there's, 6 or 7 other guys that probably don't get the recognition. And you've been on a team before, right? Leadership is never just those 1 or 2 guys that are the captains. There's always those veteran guys that also reinforce it. And we had a great internal policing of the team. I think the veterans did a hell of a job in 06. That grit, that mindset, and everything else did a great job of pulling those guys up around us and pretty much setting the tone, saying, "Hey, if you're coming here, this is the way it's going to be. If you're not with that, get your ass down the road. Go to wherever you want to go. That's easier, or maybe it's not like that, but that is how it is here. And if you want to be a part of that, man, come on, because we need you."
I mean, Case. The thing about it that I used to see from you is people hear leadership, they think it's got to be the quarterback. It's got to be Tebow. It's got to be Chris Leak, right? It's got to be them. And that's a part of it. But it seemed like Urban made sure every last one of y'all knew, hey, man, hey, Tate, you're rolling like Cornelius. You're rolling like, Aaron Hernandez. But y'all didn't intertwine with each other as far as like saying what one person did, another person didn't have to do. Talk about having your own individual with so many stars, man. People think, oh, is anybody jealous of Tebow? No. Is anybody jealous of Chris? No, because they are one of 11. They're not the one. Talk about having your own role with such a star-studded squad.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one thing that makes it special, right? When you talk about camaraderie of teamwork and friendships and how hard we watched each other work in the offseason, it wasn't really one of those things out of spite. There's plenty of opportunities to be spiteful, in your college career, depending on whether the cards are laid in your favor or you're kind of climbing an uphill battle. I think for me personally, it was, you look around the locker room and you got guys like Dallas Baker and Jamel Cornelius, and you got all these wide receivers that are, 4-4, sub 4-4 talent, and tight ends. I mean, we had 7 tight ends on the roster when I came in. We had some JUCO guys. We had some guys that have been there with David Kenner and really good people. They taught you the way of, how to a certain way, and the mindset that is, maybe that's a little bit immature. Maybe this is how you should act. And then you kind of carry that into Urban's philosophy and how he, hammered everything home. And you're right, man. He made you feel like if you weren't giving him enough, he'll let you know about it. And he will definitely treat you better if you're giving him everything you got. I think the biggest thing most people saw was, man, Coach didn't say hi to me this morning. Like, okay, I'm going to go work harder. Like, I'm going to make him notice me. I want to be one of those guys. And I think it alludes to it in the documentary pretty well from what I hear that, call it preferential treatment, call it whatever you want. That was his way of doing it. And for us that bought in, I didn't have a problem with it at all. I thought it picked up everybody in that locker room. And I think it has a lot to do with why we were able to win, the amount of games we were.
When I think about teams, right, there are certain teams that they stand out, and we have certain teams that we grew up watching certain players. You talk about 30 for 30, you talk about football life. Netflix came in and said, look, man, this 2006 to 2009 era in Florida was crazy. What is it like hearing that, man, the whole world, because it's one, yes, I'm biased, went to Florida, I get it. But the way we used to talk about y'all is what Netflix saw, because you get it. Everybody think their era was the best era. I don't think my era was the best era. I'm just happy to have an era at all. But now the whole world get to see y'all TKs. Now the whole world get to say, hey, man, Netflix got some of the best programming when you're trying to sort with all the different streaming networks. To know that what your wife knows or your children probably wasn't born then. Now they get to say, Daddy, you wasn't lying. I can't even exaggerate how incredible this squad was. What is it like knowing that's the kind of stuff that live on forever, man, to know that you're a part of something that somebody said, hey, I want to interview certain guys, sit down with them. Because they say it's a series here. It might be the start of a docuseries that go on and on. They start breaking down individual, personalities, but to know that Netflix saw enough of y'all to say, dude, we want to document y'all. That's got to do something to you to know that, all right, it's one thing for me to be biased because I played there, have my success there. But now they said the world needs to know about these boys.
Well, I will say that the one thing that I've noticed from college to now and then after doing this is not everybody prepares the same way. Not everybody approaches things the same way with the same mindset. And, I think maybe because we're used to that, right? And maybe because just the way that we put so much into the preparation, so much into every single workout, every single day, every single hour. For me, it's rewarding because, Urban used to always talk about, like, we're going to make this a place where you bring your kids back here 20 years from now, and you're going to point up to the rafters and say, I hung that banner, right? I hung. And honestly, luckily for me, and I've got to say this, I mean, I'm lucky to be a part of the second one. Right, because the first one was within my tenure. I was supposed to graduate in 2007. I ended up getting hurt and coming back, and fortunate enough to stick around for the second one. So that's not lost on me. To be a part of, something that only a handful of guys have ever been able to do at the University of Florida, at least, and that's 2 national titles in football, which is already one of the hardest things to ever do. And the best part about it for me is just really feeling that, right? Because I guarantee you, I'm going to sit there and get chills watching this every episode. They could have done 10 episodes. I mean, with the content that they had, the interviews they had, you could easily make this something that's drawn out and go in depth into every single game because there's so many storylines in every single matchup. But it's just one of those things. It is rewarding. I think it'd be great. My kids are now a little bit older where they can watch that and actually appreciate it, and get an understanding. I don't think they'll fully grasp how hard we worked. It'll be like a cool factor for them. But to me, for the fans to be able to get a sneak peek behind the scenes, as opposed to just a bias of what they got from media and newspaper headlines and maybe ESPN and certain things in the program that weren't great highlights, right? This is one of those things that it truly does highlight exactly what that team was about when the whistle was blown, when the helmets were on and the pads were on.
TK, so your kids get to watch it, your family get to watch it. People always talk about greatness. People always talk about having legendary moments. Y'all had a legendary squad twice. Like, most people can have a year. Like, okay, it was an outlier year. They just had an incredible squad. But to do it with the same dude who said, all right, and I can say this, people going to say, oh, well, the 06 team, a lot of those boys got recruited by Zook. Cool. I mean, Dallas Baker was there, was me. I mean, you talk about, Chris Leak and company, but those guys still had to buy into what Urban was selling, because Urban Urban is just, I say this, the best coaches are the craziest coaches. They're not crazy from they sick and demented. They just got methods that they go, if y'all buy in, that 12 o'clock at night stuff y'all used to do with the coming in and the whatever it was, I got the mask on. I don't even want to know everything he did, but with everything he did and the fact that it worked, Cause I get a case when you're going through it, you saying, dude, I'm gonna knock this dude the hell out. It's something wrong. I'm gonna do it for the squad. But what was the buy-in moment for you? Because you were a guy, like you said, I have been here a little while. I know what it is. What was it about Urban Meyer that made Tate Casey say, all right, dude, I can trust you, and it helps you not just become the player you became, but helps you be a part of a squad that now, man, y'all boys, y'all love for where every time they have the greatest team conversation, oh, y'all come up every time, every single time. And we got two different teams to choose from.
Yeah, I think for me was probably the initial meeting with Urban, and he did these rounds of individual interviews or meetings, whatever you want to call it. And it was pretty basic. Hey, do you want to win? Right? Do you want to win a championship? Like, are you here to win, or are you here to just be a college football player, go on? And because he didn't want guys just want to play college football, right? If that's what you're about, that's not what his goal was. His big thing was, tell me you want to win. Do you want to win? Yeah, absolutely. Right? All right. Here's what it takes. Now, having said that, what are you willing to do? And I think for me, I was all about the process, right? Even under Zook, freshman year, right? I came in a really unique scenario, right? I came in at probably 205 pounds soaking wet, and Ron Zook looked at me like, dude, what the hell have you been doing all summer? Coming off a baseball troop, thought I was going to go pro and do that.
Yeah.
Come back to college, 10 years later if it didn't work out, and, made that decision. But for me as a freshman, I was a pass catching tight end, right? Like that was my job. I may have had a handful of backside blocking plays and certain things on backside cutoffs, but my goal was, Dwayne Dixon told me, hey, third down, boom.
Coach D.
Make that switch, right? And I think game 5, when I took a starting job, I started to realize like the process is where it was. Like for me, like you don't get any reward without that process. And I think for me, seeing how Mick Marotti and Matt Bayless and Urban Meyer, everything they brought to the table with how they were going to run the show and the process that goes into it, it was like, okay, I can look around the locker room and tell you exactly what kind of talent we got, right? Like there's no doubt that Ron Zook and Larry Fedora and all those guys had a ton of talent in that locker room. Our biggest problem was not really between, the lines as much as it was off the field sometimes, and just, an unfortunate set of events that ousted Ron Zook. But I think for us, it was going to class, right? Doing all the small things right, realizing how that ties into winning football games. And a lot of guys will sit there and tell you that it doesn't. And, after going through it, I'll tell you, you're absolutely wrong. And that was the buy-in that it gave me the idea is like, you know what, like this is where I want to be. I know we're going to win championships if we do all these things right. And this is the right mindset. And you mentioned Chris Leak. Unfortunately for Chris, he had to be followed up by a guy like Tim Tebow, right? It just happens to be the greatest college football quarterback in history. I say it all the time, and I'll say it now. Chris does not get his due. And for what Chris was able to help do in molding Tim of being a student of the game as a quarterback, right? Chris Leak was one of those guys that was always on time. He was running secondary drills with his wide receivers when it wasn't called for, right? Let's go throw. Let's go get our timing down. It was kind of one of those grow-up moments for Tim, who probably saw a really high-level high school side of things and then got to college and see a guy like Chris Leak and go, hey, I've got to do that, right? This guy's a quarterback who's been around for a little bit. He's been successful in a college, scope. And Urban and them probably pressing Tim, hey, you need to watch that. You guys got to be doing this. And we were fortunate to have 2 really good quarterbacks. And I mean, off the field, on the field, students, how they treated people. Chris Leak's a great human being, great person, right? He was a great teammate. Tim Tebow, about as solid as they get. I don't know if I'll ever meet another person as good as him, right, as a human being. And it that doesn't even have to be discussed. It's just 2 guys who they wanted it that bad. They bought in. They set that bar, and everybody else lived up to it.
Tate Casey, Denise Ingram, Aaron Hernandez, Lewis Murphy, Percy Harvin, Dallas Baker, the Pouncey twins. I mean, you got Brandon Spikes, you got the eraser, Reggie Nelson, you got Joe Hayden. Most of the time, when you got that much talent, that's a lot of alpha male energy walk. That's a lot. But for every last one of those dudes to say, yo, listen, we could be known as a team that could have done it, or we could be known as a team that did it and did it our way. Because when I saw y'all, man, at a certain point, I used to go, look, man, I used to look at y'all like this. If y'all were a sprinter, right? If it's a 4x1, I go, if they get the baton first, it's over. But they can catch anybody. I don't care if you get it to them, because y'all had this knack of y'all used to bludgeon people. Like, it wasn't this, hey, man, call the dogs off. Nope. If we can score 100, we're going to score 100. The best with so many memories, when Urban kept calling them timeouts against Georgia. To me, what I loved about it was this. That's what a player want a coach to do. Hey, bro, you remember and who slapped him on the butt when he did it? Cam Newton. Right? And to me, the thing about this, 2 national championships in 3 years, and Cam Newton was the third guy. Newton was the third guy. Now, it's always what could have been, had everything now. But to me, what I love the most about y'all TKs was I heard about practice. I heard about how crazy it used to be. You could tell y'all boys loved each other on Saturday. You could see it. There's some things as football players you cannot fake. You cannot make us like each other. You sure as hell can't make us, like do things with each other. But it's almost like Urban said, if I could make them work in practice, love each other away from the field, come Saturday, it's a wrap. Unless something just crazy happens.
Yeah, 100%. And the best part about it was those teams had their identities. Right? I talked about the 06 team being blue collar. You fast forward to 08 team, it was swag. Like, that was the show, right? We knew by 08, we knew how good we were, and we got a taste of, we got punched in the mouth in 07, thought we were really good, and had to turn the corner and, another chapter. And we kind of got humbled a little bit in 07. And I think that's why 08 team, we got better that offseason. We came out. The 08 team, you couldn't tell us anything on the field. And not coaching perspective. I'm just saying, the outside world, you couldn't bring us down. The mental wall was already up. Like, nobody could have cracked that. And for us as a team, all we knew is if we go out and do what we do, it's a wrap. And, unfortunately, the Ole Miss game that year was one that we'd like to have back. Kind of very similar to the Auburn game in 06. We got humbled. But I also think we needed those losses at the time that they happened in order to go accomplish what we did, because I think we kind of got a little too caught up in ourselves. But no, we were our own best hype people. Like, we hyped our team. I don't think there was a lot of spite on the team. I don't think you had a lot of individuals that didn't like other guys on the team. Our biggest thing we had was us. And I think the cool part about that is when you look at it now, 20 years later, 15 years later, it makes you miss it even more, right? Like, I mean, you hear a lot of NFL guys talk about they miss the camaraderie, miss the locker room, that kind of stuff. Most of the time we're talking about college, right? In those 18 to 23-year-old years, right? You don't hear a lot of NFL guys say, man, I miss the Bills back in, 2000. I've heard Brandon Seiler come back and talk to us as a team in 08, the Georgia game, talking about, he had played an AFC title game or a divisional championship game, and it's not even close to being back in the locker room and seeing this type of atmosphere. And it's just one of those things. It's SEC football. I think anybody who watches that conference knows what we're about. They understand what Saturdays are about. And fortunately for us as Florida fans and Florida alumni, that's what we want, right? Like, I don't get bent out of shape because the Gators were 6-7 last year or whatever their record was the prior year, right? I get bent out of shape when the mindset's not there, right? When especially guys from 06 to 08 era, like it drives us nuts when you see certain small things. And if you could just convey to those players, like, it's those real, like, minuscule things that matter so much. That's the small pieces of the puzzle we got to start climbing back to in order to get back in that contention.
That was my conversation with the homie Tate Casey, man. Team 84, Tight End you. But if you do nothing else, make sure you check out his Netflix special, Swamp Kings. All 4 episodes, they said, already been leaked last night. So we are already behind the times. Make sure you check out the Netflix special, Swamp Kings. He was Tate Casey. I am being true. No games, no gimmicks, just reasons. What is the reason? Swamp Kings. Make sure you check it out. And we out here.